Hello, Dhananjay madam.
1 second, sir. 1 second. Ma'am, Dhananjay ma'am, you are unmuted, ma'am. You can start the session.
Good morning to respected authorities, faculty members, students, and all the participants. I welcome you all on behalf of Chevrolet Engineering College to this one-day national level webinar on technology and its implications on economy in 21st century, which is being organized by Mechanical Engineering Department. It is my privilege to welcome the speaker of today's session, Dr. C. Srinivas Garu, currently working as professor in Department of Mechanical Engineering, RVR and JC Engineering College. He completed his PhD from Andhra University and has nearly 4 years of industrial experience and 21 years of professional experience. He published more than 46 papers, including international conferences. On behalf of Chevrolet Engineering College and all the participants, I respectfully welcome Dr. C. Srinivas Garu to start the today's session. And I hope all the participants will have a good session today. Thank you, and over to the host.
Thank you, Dhananjay madam. So the session is yours, sir.
Okay. So you have, I think you have unmuted my host disabled participant screen share. So just try to cross check that. Okay. So have you enabled screen sharing? Have you enabled screen sharing here?
Hello, Dinesh sir.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, sir. 1 second, sir. 1 second. Yeah, sir. Now you can share your screen, sir.
Okay. So Suprabhatam, namaste to everyone. I would like to start by expressing my sincere gratitude to the organizers for giving me this opportunity for sharing what I would say a little bit of the fruits of my manthan over the years working with the technology. But before I go into it, I just like to start by invoking the blessings of the gods, as we always do in our great Indian tradition, to ensure that what comes out is true to the best of my knowledge. So just before actually starting the webinar, just a small prayer. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karva Vahai Tejasvinaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, which means that may God protect us both the presenter and the listener. May God nourish us both. May we work together with energy and vigor. May our study be enlightened and not giving rise to hostility. Om, peace, peace, peace. Thank you all for being here today. I'm happy today to talk on technological changes and what these technological changes mean to economy and the impact of these technology on labor markets and on income distribution and some policy options that may be available and the possible scenarios that hopefully shed some light. So look at some of the trends. Look at some of the trends of the technology in the present global scenario and technological advances which are causing huge ripples but also great disruptions. So you I think you might have already known what is there on the screen. This is called as a driverless car or self-driving car, and sometimes called as autonomous car or driverless car. It is a vehicle that uses a combination of sensors, cameras, radars, and artificial intelligence to travel between destinations without a human operator. So without a driver, without a human operator, it can move from one destination to another destination it uses a combination of sensors, cameras, radars, and artificial intelligence to move from one place to another place. So look at the next innovation. We have the 3D printing, or we call it the additive manufacturing. Is the construction of a three-dimensional object from a CAD model or a digital 3D model. So once you have a CAD design, you could be able to produce the product itself entirely without its components by a 3D printing or additive manufacturing. So you can see this is the next one is the virtual reality. This one is the virtual reality. Virtual reality is the use of a computer technology to create a simulated environment. It creates an environment by simulation, by computer technology. Virtual reality places the user inside the experience. The user creates an experience of the person who is actually seeing that virtual reality. Instead of viewing a screen in front of them, users are immersed and able to interact with 3D models. So you could be able to not see the models in front of the screen. You could be able to experience the product. You could be able to interact and experience with the 3D models. So that is what is the capability of virtual reality is. Now you can see that here, this is the robots were used for automation in the car manufacturing. A robot is as you already know, a robot is a machine designed to execute one or more tasks automatically with speed and precision. So they do the things automatically with more speed and precision. And it's a machine programmable by a computer capable of carrying out a complex series of actions automatically. Robots can be guided by an external control device, or the control may be embedded within. And here, this is another kind of innovation. Most of you already know all of these technologies. Most of them might have been already familiar with. So another thing is that here's automation. What is meant by automation? Automation is the technology by which a process or procedure is performed with minimal human assistance. And the next one is here, you can see that this is the human watch. So this is a smartwatch, what we call as a smartwatch. Smartwatch is a digital watch that provides timekeeping, monitoring your heart rate, tracking your activity, and providing reminders, and also provides the GPS and also tells you what you have to do by reminding time to time throughout the day. And here, this is the phone. This is called a smartphone, which can be folded. So as I already told, it's the automation. You can see our robots using it. It is the entire automated machinery in the industry. So one more thing you might have already familiar, or you might have come across, is the smart home. Smart home, where you can able to perform many activities which has to be done at the home by staying outside by the smartphone. So you can see that here the locks, suppose you have forgotten to lock the door, then by outside you can lock the doors. Similarly, you can see that TV speakers, if you forgot by somehow you might have forgotten a switch off the TV, right? Then you can from outside you can able to see that you could able to switch off the TV, and you can see security cameras. You can see the security. Suppose you might have forgot to switch on the cameras. From smartphone, from outside you can switch on the cameras, and also blinds. Some of the blinds you might forgot to close the blinds, and thermostat, ACs, and all these things. By the use of a smartphone we call it the Internet of Things. Into the Internet of Things, we could be able to do all these activities of lighting and also the various appliances, mixers, and also various appliances which are using that can be switched on and switched off. Right? And also the irrigation, anything in gardening work and anything that you forgotten that you can do by a smartphone nowadays through what we call as Internet of Things. So now the technology has undergone so much progress that IoT, what we call the Internet of Everything. Now we are using Internet of Everything means we are connecting every device under the sun through internet, which can process the information, analyze and pass the information forward and backward. So you can see that Internet of Things is what people usually mean when they are IoT. Now it's not called as IoT, Internet of Things. They call as the Internet of Everything. Beyond physical objects, merely communicating with one another. Not only physical objects, with the humans, you could be able to communicate with one another and able to interact with one another. So it is an intelligence process. We could be able to interact people, process and data and things. And when internet meets wireless sensor networks, we could be able to generate what is called as the Internet of Things. So first, what is meant by technology? So since we are talking about the technology, first let us have some understanding about what is meant by technology. So it refers to methods, systems and devices which are the result of scientific knowledge being used for practical purposes. So we are using the scientific knowledge in the methods and systems and devices that we are using for the application of practical things. So that we call as the technology. And technology could be seen as a sequence of innovations, and new inventions. And it is the application of the same thing which I said in the first point, is the application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes, especially in industry. So now look at, now we are in the present case in Industry 4.0, what we call as the Industry 4.0. So see how the things have progressed from Industry 1.0 to 4.0. Industry 1.0, this is the Industry 1.0, and it is the end of the 18th century. It happened in the end of the 18th century, and it is happened because of the introducing mechanical production machines powered by water and steam. Because of the invention of the steam engine by James Watt at this time, this revolution called Industry 1.0, and it is the introduction of the mechanical and production machines powered by the water and steam. And at the beginning of the 20th century, you can see that Industry 2.0, it is introducing mass production lines powered by electrical energy, powered by the electrical energy. So it is where the mass production has started. So mechanical people are very well know that in the beginning of the century, there is a revolution of mass production of the three motor vehicle companies, Chrysler and Ford and General Motors. Because of this mass production, tremendous progress has been made in the US and the rest of the part of the world. And the next is at the Industrial 3.0, which happens at the beginning of the 1970s. It happens in the beginning of 1970s, which we call as the Industrial 3.0, and it is the autonomous production through the use of electronics and IT. With the advent of the transistor and also electronics and the information technology, so autonomous production has started and it has created a new boom, and we call this the Industry 3.0. And now we are today here in Industry 4.0. Industry 4.0 is based on the cyber physical systems, what we call as the Internet of Things, Internet of Everything, hyper connected world. All these words are coined in this present generation, which we call as the Industrial 4.0. So now you try to look into this particular graph, and in the x-axis we can see that over a period of time. So what new technology is found, how this technology has contributed to the social human index. So just to go have a look at this particular graph. So although history doesn't repeat itself, I think sometimes we can learn a bit from what's happened in the past. And if you look at the economic history of humanity, what you find is that most of it was extremely boring. For centuries, actually millennia, the living standards didn't change. You can see that here, over a period of time, social human index, or the productivity, or you can say that the standard of living of the human region over a period of time before 1775 does not change drastically. There are more or less remain the same, So there were kings and queens and empires and philosophers and religions and natural catastrophes and diseases, but the average person's life really was pretty much the same, day in, day out. But then something changed drastically. If you look at the late 1700s, so this is late 1775 around. If you look at the late 1700s, things really started to change for the average person. And you can measure this by how drastically the standard of living of a normal person have risen can be easily observed by this GDP, what we call as the GDP per person or population or social development index. So this is the social development index. Right, with the over a period of time, you can clearly see that this GDP, or Human Development Index, has given a spike. You can see spike, and with the advent of the Industrial 1.0, that is invent of the steam engine. So this has ignited the Industrial Revolution and sort of much steeper economic growth. A couple of % per year compounded annually. So you can see that here. This one is the advent of the steam engine. This is the advent of the steam, compounded annually, and it starts adding up very quickly over time, doubling and growing exponentially. So this is another graph which shows, so what are the various types of technologies that were invented over a period of time from 1750 onwards. From 1750 onwards up to 2000, what are the various new technologies that were found, and with what speed they are implemented, they have been implemented, and this is vividly shown. This is graphically shown, illustrated with this diagram. So you can see in the x-axis we have the invention year of technology. This is the invention year of technology. In the y-axis, it is shown the technology adoption lag. What we call, this is the technology adoption lag. Okay, that is the speed with which the technology is implemented once it was found out for the first time. So you can clearly observe, just you try to observe before I go for the explanation. So first you try to have a glimpse of this slide. So what is the conclusion that you can draw here? what is the conclusion that you can draw from here? You can see that the steam engines. So the technologies that were 200 years back, that were 202 years back, where it took a lot of time for them to come into action. From the idea to implementation, the lag is more. So steam engines took a long time to be implemented, whereas the newer technologies, whereas the newer cell phones, right? And you can see that the PCs, internet, the cars and telephones took a lesser time, took a lesser time to be implemented. That is the lag, the speed, the technology adapted lag is more here. You find that as the newer and newer technology increases, as the time progresses, the adaptation is taking very fast. That means newer and newer inventions have been found out, and they are grabbed with both hands by all the countries, and the tremendous progress has been made. So from this slide, the conclusion that we can draw is there is a technology adoption lot, and it has been decreased over time. That is the observation or the interpretation that you can make from this slide. Okay. So now, as everybody in this situation, what is that you find that everywhere is connectivity. So connectivity is now part of everyday life. From the moment we wake up to the minute we go to sleep, and now even during our sleep, we are continuously connected. Whether it may be via smartwatch, it may be smartphone or smart car, people are increasingly becoming switched on. Switched on as becoming the daily part of everybody's routine. So you can have a poll, if you require, you can have a poll. How much of the time that the present generation or the younger, older generation are how much they are spending on smartphone? 1 to 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours. That gives you the how much they are engrossed, how much they are addicted to a particular device. So you can always have a call in between. If you have some form of a poll or some form of interaction, where you can put it in chat box, so that it makes things more interesting. That rather than giving information continuously and have a instead of a monologue. So that if you have a two-way communication rather than a monologue, that helps things better. Anyway, so you must introspect yourself. How much connectivity or you are completely encompassed with, and see that how much you are spending on these devices. Most of the time you can find that is obvious, that is pervasive, that you can find that everybody are using these smartphones. So connectivity is now a part of everyday life. So we cannot ignore that. We cannot deny that. So one more thing that is confounding, is accentuating this new technologies, hyperconnectivity. So hyperconnectivity is also a trend in computer network in which all things will communicate through the network. This encompasses person to person. You can interact person to person to hyperconnectivity, person to machine, and machine to machine communication. So interaction through human to human or human to machine or machine to machine is possible through this hyperconnectivity. Okay. So are you able to see the slide? Hello?
Sir, I think you stopped sharing your screen, sir. Please share again.
Okay, all right. Okay, are you able to
Yes, sir.
see
Yes, sir.
now?
Now we are able to.
Right, fine. So just we're talking about the hyper connectivity and how it is helping to connect with the person to person and person to machine communication. How it enables that to make these things happen of communicating with person to machine, and machine to machine communication. The global economy is changing beyond recognition. So what is their economy in 20 years back or 10 years back? It is not the same now. It is changing beyond recognition. As we move from the industrial age of 1.0 to the hyper-connected digital age, Industry 4.0. Today, we all live in a world of sweeping changes and multiple challenges. Socio-economic landscape is changing beyond recognition. What is there 10 years back? No, it is not there. What is there 10 years back? It is completely wiped off. New, you have the entirely a new environment. We will be defined by how we respond to these changes. If you want to survive in the present environment and ensure that you are also a part of the technology, then you have to embrace the change. If you don't embrace change, you will get outdated. You will be defined by how you respond to these changes. Whether you embrace to them, you will survive. If you don't embrace those things, you will be outdated. You will be left out. New technologies are transforming how we think, work, play, and relate to each other. That is ubiquitous. That is seen everywhere, pervasive. How these new technologies are contributing to the behavior of an individual, how he is interacting, how he is thinking, how he is working, how he is playing, and how he is relating with one another. Previously, when you look into the human individual, he used to go out and play in the outside atmosphere. Nowadays, they are playing video games. Even for 5 years back, we used to talk with phone. Right? If you want to talk with say something to others, we used to talk with one another. Nowadays, even that is also has minimized. Only thing what here is texting. Always texting. If you always type the text and think that the other person able to see the text. So the things have changed drastically. How we think, the thinking process, how you work. So nowadays we don't use any notes, right? Pen or notes. So the work habits, changed. Playing habits changed. How you relate with your parents, how you relate with your friends, that also have changed because of these new technologies. So digital disruption has become the order of the day. So that we have to live with that digital disruption. The convergence of information system has become more complicated and dynamic in nature, which drives industrial organization to invest in smart manufacturing. So I'm going to dwell on that smart man later. So the industries are left with little choice or no choice of embracing to smart manufacturing. Otherwise, the industry cannot survive. So this is because of digital revolution. At the same time, it also caused certain disruption. It also caused certain anxiety. It also caused certain uncertainty, but it does provide unprecedented opportunities for the entrepreneurs who embrace to digital technology. It is a boon. It created an unprecedented opportunities. So just look at the great linking of the global economy over the past few decades. World trade has grown exponentially. We are now in a world of integrated supply chains, where more than half of total manufacturing imports and more than 70% of total service imports are intermediate goods or services. A typical manufacturing company today uses inputs from more than 35 different contractors across the world, providing the customer with convenience, availability, and responsiveness. This new smart manufacturing, this digital technology has created unprecedented opportunity and also given a good quality product to the consumer at a competitive price. You can observe that any company, even a small company, able to import so many intermediate goods from across the globe. A typical manufacturing company, as per Tata company or Birla company, is able to get components from different contractors across the world, forming different supply chains. Supply chain is become an important dimension in the growth of any country. Another thing that you might have observed that of the last decade, 10 years, communication revolution took place. So we are living through a communication revolution. It has produced a starburst of interconnections with information traveling at lightning speed from limitless points of origin. The world has become a hum of interconnected voices and a hive of interlinked lives. So you can see that this cell phones are there, and a mobile mindset is deeply entrenched in the entire world, right? So because of this communication revolution, so we are living in a communication revolution that produced many interconnections, starburst of interconnections. Because of the high connectivity, with information traveling at lightning speed from various infinity number of origins, from limitless points of origins. Now the world has become a hum of interconnected voices and a hive of interlinked lives. So now look at this scenario. This is statistics of 2015. 3 billion people are connected to each other on the internet. 3 million emails are sent each second. There are almost as many mobile devices as people on the planet. And the mobile mindset is deeply entrenched and embedded in all regions of the world, especially in Asia and Africa. You will find that each person has having 2 or 3 mobiles. You will have 3 mobiles. So mobile mindset is deeply embedded because of this communication revolution. So now go to technology, what this causes to the economy, how they are interlinked. So let me begin with the interlinkages between technology and the economy. Innovation is pushing ahead at warp speed. So you can see driverless car. So vastly new inventions are coming out. It is moving at lightning speed, at warp speed. Everybody knows it. You have to live with it, even drive it. That is autonomous car. We are certainly living through one of the most exciting periods in human history. No generation has such kind of comforts in human history. You look into prehistory of your ancestors. They don't have that much abundance, so much luxury, so much comfort in their entire life. The present generation has so much comfort and compared with others. The pace of change is so fast that even the technology of 5 years ago seems to be prehistoric. The technology is changing at a rapid pace that the technology of 5 years ago is now prehistoric, is outdated. The phone which you are using 1 year back, many of them are not using now because of many new features. So the technology of 5 years ago, even the technology of 5 years ago seems prehistoric. So those of you who are students, I'm talking of present generations, probably do not even remember a time when phones were not smart, when cameras contained film, when text means school books, and when wireless referred to an old-fashioned radio. When we are studying, consider for 30 years, 35 years back, at that time, when the phone means, at that time, phones are not smart. We are using landlines. The two used to get that landline after a lot of squabbling with the higher authorities. They don't used to sanction that phone immediately at that time, 30 years back. Used to a camera which contains a film. Right now we are using digital camera. We know text means only textbooks at that time, not the text which you are referring now, which you are texting to your friends. And wireless means at that time only radio. It's an old-fashioned radio. So this advance is centered on the rise of global digital network, the hyper-connected world, combined with the rise of genuine machine intelligence. This is another important aspect, so which we will going to see later. Okay, apart from the hyper-connected world, the combination of the machine intelligence, this high advance is centered on. If the previous revolutions were about using machines for brawn, that is for muscle power. Previous revolutions use machines for muscle power. This is about using machines for brain. Nowadays, we are using machines for brains. Previously, we used to use machines for brawn, which means for muscle power. Now, we are using machines for brains nowadays. And since technology is powering a giant leap in global interconnectivity, these are connected brains. We can see so now look at some of the trends now. Today's smartphones are much more powerful supercomputers. We see cars driving themselves, printers making complicated three-dimensional parts, which means 3D printing, rapid prototyping, and robots doing the most complex tasks with effortless ease. Science fiction is rapidly becoming science fact. Previously, 30 years back, when you used to use the film, we used to make observation that is entirely fiction. Nowadays, if we observe what are things happening in front of our ears, or in front of our eyes and ears, we have to believe them. They are facts. They are science facts. Indeed, we may just be getting started. That means that this is only a beginning. We don't know what we may do, miracles we may do in future with these popping up from time to time. We may just be getting started when it comes to the power and reach of machine intelligence. So just to break the monologue, so I'd just like to pose a question here. Did you know what the world's biggest hotel company does not own any hotels? Can you tell me the name? The world's biggest hotel company, which does not own any hotels. Another question is, world's biggest taxi company, which does not own any cabs. The third one is, what is the world's biggest news agency, which does not own any newspapers? Which companies am I talking about? So can you post in the chat box? I think I'm not getting chat here. So can anybody say what are these companies are? Just to have to break a monologue of completely.
Sir, one person is waiting, sir. I think can we allow him to?
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, Sai Kishore Kanakala. Sir, you are unmuted. Sai Kishore Kanakala. Sir, you are unmuted. I think you raised your hand. Okay, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay. Right. Fine. That's fine. So, of course, you all know the answer. It is Airbnb, who does not hold any hotels, and Uber that everybody is familiar with, Uber is familiar with, and news agents, world biggest news is Facebook. Only a few years ago or 10 years ago, these companies does not exist. And it would have been unthinkable to even ask a question like that. We cannot able to even think of asking such a question. But ever since a little company called Amazon.com started selling books online, we have come to expect the unexpected. Disruption through technology and market forces is the only known variable. Everything else is guesswork. So nothing is stagnant, nothing is constant. The only thing that is constant is the change. So you can expect the disruption, things happening from time to time, just like COVID-19. It's a disruption. Through technology and market force is the only variable that's going to happen in the future. Whatever other thing is the guesswork. So some of the emerging technologies we will try to see before going to the economy. I think we are going slow. Okay, emerging technologies, you can see I will go a little bit faster. So emerging technologies in computer-aided design, materials, robotics, nanotechnology, and biotechnology will likely come together to transform how engineering works. So this combination of these things is going to transform an engineer how he works. Faster processing and network speeds will soon allow future engineers to design entire product as a system, right? Generally, what we try to do is we try to produce components and sub-assemblies and try to assemble to make a final product. That may not be the case in the future. So the entire system you can develop on your own, right? By the process that is in the future, rapid prototype and 3D printing, that is what it is going to be done there. So this will expand the capacity of all the engineers and enable more complex designs to be completed anywhere. Anywhere you can sit, just in the next slide I will show that, anywhere you can sit and able to interact with the fellow engineers and able to produce the components by the collaboration with others by sitting at home. So home-based personal fabrication will be readily available to turn these computer-aided designs into reality. Right? Fabrication you can do on your own by the CAD model in the home itself. Rapid prototyping and fabrication laboratories are improving and will soon be affordable for those running home production. Within 20 years, it is likely that home-based personal fabricators will be economically attractive. Now it is not economically viable, but 20 years you can find that it is economical, attractive, and available to anyone who wants to own them, who wants to do them. So that is what the technology is going to take in future. Engineers will be able to act as independent operators, interacting with your colleagues, virtual reality, what we talked in one of the technologies. So virtual reality, that is what we talked about. Engineers will be able to act as independent operators, interacting with colleagues around the world. They can design at home with advanced CAD systems or in collaboration with their global colleagues in virtual worlds. Engineers of the future will have better tools. And compared to us, engineers in the future will have better tools to build careers as individual inventors, independent entrepreneurs, and employees in distributed businesses that draw on engineering talent from around the world. So you can have a collaboration with a pool of talented people in the entire world through virtual reality and to be able to come up with innovative products. So just I want to quote Vishal Sikka. Vishal Sikka, I think many of them are aware what he is. He is the former CEO of Infosys and he's a very good technocrat. And what he says is many of the solutions of yesterday's problems will be automated. But no matter how intelligent robots become, they will not tell you what the big problems are. They don't have the imagination of human beings. So what does he say is that a human should not focus on the routine task. So a routine task, for example, say doing the same activity again and again. So that tasks the humans should be done away with. And they always must focus on the new kind of things that they want to develop. So even the brain, human brain also will not accept the routine works. They always want to see that new and new, want to move towards the new and new things. So as an individual, as an engineer, we should not be resting upon our laurels. So you need to focus upon new things instead of the routine things. Hello? So are you able to hear my voice? Is there any problem? Hello?
Sir, no problem, sir. It is clear. You can.
Okay, fine. Right, fine. So what he says that in the future you have ubiquitous connectedness. It's the Internet of Things, Internet of everything. So nowadays we carry a number of devices. It may not be the case in the future. So the table which you are putting your laptop, the table which you are putting your glasses, whatever that may become digital, intelligent. The cup, the glass will be intelligent. He says computing will become common, pervasive. Everybody will be knowing about the computers. They will also be coding. Neither the mechanical engineers, civil engineers, so whoever whatever may be the stream or domain. So everybody will be knowing about the coding. So we have intelligent proactive software that understands. Our ability to prototype massively complex things quickly on demand will become more greater. That will impact every industry, every individual. It changes the manner in which you do things. It changes the manner you relate with one another. It changes how you interact with others. So now we come to the machine. Previously, machines are not intelligent. Of late, machines have become intelligent because of artificial intelligence. So you have a second machine. It happened in 2013 like that. So if you want to change the world, it requires two things. One is the power system, and the other thing is the control system. So the first is the power system. Power system means right. If you want to change the world, you need to have two things. You need a power system and a control system. That is what you can see that first is the power system and the control system. Right? A power system becomes because the world is mostly made of atoms held in place by physical forces. And you need to physically be able to have the power to transform the world. But that is not enough. You need to control system to figure out how to arrange things, how to organize things, what to do with them. So, but a wonderful, as I listed out, as I already told, but a wonderful thing happened about 200 years ago. The Industrial Revolution. So you can see that the Industrial Revolution, where we got the physical power because of steam engine. You can see that internal combustion engine, electricity. Because of this, you have more physical power, right? Physical power. That means instead of using our muscles, these contributed for the growth of the progress of any country. So these Industrial Revolution are complementary to the humans, right? They are not replaced the humans, but they have acted as a complement to humans. Nowadays, of late, you have the second machine age, which you have the mental power, and where you use the computer, software, big data, machine intelligence to make the machine smart. And this has causing a threat to the jobs of the workers. So which are subject to debate, and whether the question arises whether they're acting as the complements or the substitute or replacing the machines. That is what we need to debate upon. So up to 2005, so most of the human thoughts that we have certain unique human abilities. So what are these human abilities? At that time, machines are not intelligent. But I'm giving this information at the point of 2005. So uniquely human abilities that human have, and they have autonomous mobility and fine motor control. A human has. He able to recognize the language and complex communication and pattern matching. They only humans would be able to match the patterns, and unstructured problem only humans used to have. And one more thing, at that point in time, it was felt that it is very difficult to make a automated driving vehicle in a huge traffic. But these times, things have changed rapidly in the last decade, and things started happening a lot faster than anticipated. And in fact, all three of these categories, there's been a lot of progress. And 4 years back, Google announced or unveiled a purpose-built driverless automobile vehicle with no steering vehicle. So things have changed rapidly in the last decade. Okay. Now you can see in the last decade, Google has announced in the last 4 years back itself a driverless vehicle which does not having a steering wheel. Does not having a steering wheel. And you'll find that this is a robot. So this was a robot which was developed by MIT, and these are robots running out there. This robot can outrun any human being, anyone. It was designed like that. So nowadays we can see that even the smartphones, we also see a lot of progress in language and voice recognition. Now machines are being able to mostly understand us pretty well and are being able to communicate with us. So machines are able to recognize the voice. They could able to make the translation, and they could able to authorize even the news stories nowadays. So robots are able to be seen everywhere. So the factories, land, sea, and also the mines and the homes. And you can see the games and reasoning. So reasoning and games, so poker and Go and the chess and the Jeopardy. So it's a game, it's a Jeopardy game. And all these new inventions or new advancements happen because of the thing called as the machine learning. You see, because of this machine learning, we could able to advance so many things 5 years ahead and compares what we thought of previously, because of the invention of this artificial intelligence and the machine language, which is a subset of the artificial intelligence. So the text, the speech recognition, fraud detection, so the vision, 3D visualization, self-driving, or you can say recommendations or translation. All these new processes or new things happen because of this new thing called as the machine learning. So as I already told that even the New York publisher could be able to write the article, right? So now devices can even write stories, and the New Yorker has an article about digital journalism replacing more and more journalists. They write stories, they write short stories and make reports. So nowadays, even a particular machine or device could act as a journalist and able to write the articles and able to write the report. So much advance has took place. So tomorrow's areas, you can see artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, data science, robots, apart from the mechanicals. I'm talking about computer science here, virtual reality, Internet of Things. So all these things we are going to change the world for the better. And you can see that how they are interlinked, artificial intelligence and machine learning and deep learning and data science, how they are interlinked is given by this Venn diagram. So artificial is the tool that we are going to use. That is, for example, autonomous driving vehicle. That is uses artificial intelligence. Machine learning uses the analysis part, data analysis part, and deep learning is the training part, and data science use the mathematics to find out the appropriate solution. So all these are interlinked, and I think the computer people knows better about it. And also, as a part of understanding of these areas also enables you to put you on the front foot. To put you in the front foot. Okay? So science fiction is rapidly becoming science fact. Science fiction is becoming the science fact. And as I already told, indeed, we may just be getting started when it comes to the power and reach of machine intelligence. So we cannot say that, suppose we have found out a good technology, whether this technology, whether everybody is using for better or for they are using for wrong purpose also, that you need to contemplate, you need to analyze. So with great power comes great responsibility. So there is a school of thought that says, science should be pure and unfettered and should not consider the consequences. Technology is not neutral. So there's a general feeling that some group of people have the belief that, have the notion that science is only must be pure and unfettered and should not worry about the consequence. We should only worry about inventing new technologies and we should not worry about the consequence. That is one logic or one viewpoint that is expressed by the certain sections of the people. But we must understand that technology is not completely unbiased in depending upon innovations. You could make a smallpox vaccine, or you could make a killer virus that could be weaponized, and you could make nuclear power for weapons, or you could make it for peaceful purposes or for wrong purposes. So I think as it becomes more and more powerful, you need to be more and more thoughtful about how to use the technology, about what those applications are, and don't just do it for your own sake. Think there would be a good reason, and for betterment of the society's sake, we should always use the technology. Now look at this slide. So the first slide, which again I'm going to show it in the later, is a slide which shows about when the industrial revolution took place, and Luddite, we call Luddite, they try to destroy the machines. Because they felt that their income is deprived, and so they try to destroy the machines. So because they felt anxiety, they felt insecurity, so they thought that these machines are going to replace them, supplement them. So they try to destroy the machines. So anxiety or uncertainty or protest or so showing resistance is not something new. It has been done since years. And you can see that here in the bottom of the slide. You see that this Mark Zuckerberg being able to is a tech clash against many of the companies. You see Mark Zuckerberg being hauled in the Congress. So he is able to ask to attend the Congress for violating the data privacy, providing data privacy, and not providing security to the consumer, protecting the consumer. So he was asked to attend the Congress, and he has to give the explanation why there's a breach of privacy on a certain issues, and also you can see that here. So in the next slide, you can see that literally just recently, Sergey Brin, who is the co-founder of Google, was writing about the threat that AI poses, as artificial intelligence poses, as well as the benefits. In particular, he said that their company is giving serious thought to problems like job destruction from artificial intelligence. So he also expressed worry about artificial intelligence, how it is going to cause damage to certain section of the society. So he said that he is focusing more on the technology who is going to benefit it, and is giving serious thought to problems like job destruction from artificial intelligence. So much is the gravity of the situation that the AI poses to humankind. So there are certain challenges which the technology that we have to confront with. Even though I have listed these challenges, but we are not going to talk about all these challenges. So first one is the economics, which we are concentrated about, many people being left behind. And so false news as cyber and democracy. So that means we could able to train the data sets in such a way to produce the fake news. Suppose if you want to maximize your viewership, you have to create certain data sets, so which leads to certain falsehood. So it also it enables developing certain false news. So algorithm bias you can create in data sets, algorithm bias. So you can see that this also has come into forefront. End of privacy, which means that whenever you download an app, it asks several questions. So once you answer these questions, then we will be worrying about whether our privacy will be breached. So people keeps on questioning. So whenever you try to introduce an app for Armageddon or any app, opposition keeps on questioning. So whether it is privacy is not maintained, its privacy is breached, like that. So, and also these technologies always develop, this we'll see later. Winner takes all. Only the person who have developed will get all the fruits, all the benefits. But it is not equally distributed. And you have the cyber risk, where if you don't have the infrastructure strongly, then there is always hacking that takes place. So all these whole host of things are there, we are not at present. Time will not permit you to discuss about this aspect, but we only focus on the economics part of it. That is, people being left there, how many people are left behind. So new grand challenge is digital technologies will continue to accelerate. We cannot stop it. And our skills, organizations and institutions are lagging. We are not keeping pace with these digital technologies. So business as usual won't solve this, but if you keep on resting on your laurels, on your past glory, then you will be left behind. You will be lost. So we need to reinvent our economy. You need to reinvent yourself and society to keep up with the accelerating technology. So now coming to the next part of it, next segment part of it, which is how does it mean to the economy? So how these technologies affect the economy. So as I already showed in the previous slide, this figure I had shown previously also. So let us, how this got affected, economy get affected. We start with a historic digression, just to highlight that anxiety about impact of technology on jobs is not something new. So and now people get anxiety because of uncertainty. It's not something new. If you look back at the Luddites movement at the outset of Industrial Revolution, as we can see from the picture on the screen, the Luddites at that time of Industrial Revolution, textile workers protesting and destroying the machines. So you can see the textile workers destroying the machines, because they fear that these machines will displace them and take their jobs. The other machine is the printing press. You can see the other machine that which you have shown is the printing press. That you can see that is the printing press. The new method has replaced of writing books by hand, and this led to the fear of scribes with the fully substituted. Because of this printing press, cost of production of books reduced drastically. disruption took place, workers need to be replaced and adopt. In the end, printing press, new industry appeared, more jobs created, books are available to wider audience, and cost of production of books went down drastically. So now look at the newspapers, some of the newspapers. So newspaper keeps on writing articles, right? So they don't have a single opinion. They keeps on throwing opinions, judgments daily, changing every time as the need arises. So you can see that we can see almost every week alarming headlines. Some newspapers are arguing technology is going to displace jobs and machine learning will conquer humans. Some weeks later, in some other newspapers or same paper says technology is overhyped and would not cause dramatic changes. So you can see both the versions. One time they say that they are not going to displace the jobs. Other time they say it is overhyped, nothing to worry. So you can find that in uncertainty times, just like in a COVID, so you have different kinds of versions, right? So they keep on newspaper keeps on listing the information in whatever they convenient that it is. So anxiety is connected to uncertainty, and there is uncertainty because technology and technology advances affect labor markets and income distribution. So why this protest will be there? Because anxiety, people get anxiety over the new situation and thereby creating uncertainty. Uncertainty creates anxiety. And there is uncertainty because technology and technological advances affect labor markets and income distribution in multiple channels in many different ways. In the end, what matters is not only the impact but associated cost. Now, so look at this particular figure. Over a period of time, how the labor workforce have changed with their domains, right? So this is in the beginning, you need to have greater, this is related to US. So in the beginning, you have labor workforce. So manufacturer workforce is this much level. You can see that here. Service workforce is much. As the time progresses, you can see the drastic shift. So laborer workforce has reduced, right? Manufacturer workforce is medium and service workforce is more. Now, how the reallocation of workforce has taken place? How reallocation of workforce has took place over a period of time. Okay, so technology contribute to labor relocation within the labor force. Okay, within the labor, the technology has played an important role in this labor relocation. First from agriculture to manufacturing, and then from manufacturing to services in recent past. So transition is always costly, and so jobs are destroyed and some are transformed. There is always a risk during times of rapid change. In the past, it was agricultural workers and then industrial workers in jeopardy of their work. Today, even seasonal professions can find themselves cast adrift on an unfamiliar situation. There is no guarantee nowadays for even seasonal professions to survive unless they embrace two new technologies. So I will show some graphs how this technology has affected productivity and also wages and also the income. So productive, just I thought of telling you what is my productive, but it's not necessary. Now look at this graph. Now look at this graph. So it shows the graph, x-axis shows the GDP per hour, what US, right? This is x-axis is GDP. Okay, this is GDP, and
Hello, sir.
Okay, so now, okay, this we are not getting the screen sharing now.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Somehow
sir.
disconnect. I don't.
I think some. Okay, try now, sir. Try now.
Okay. Okay, now it's okay. Fine, fine. So now I'm showing this particular slide. I'm showing this particular slide. This shows the graph between the x-axis GDP versus the employment. You can see that as the GDP increases, GDP is because of the technology. You can see that the employment also has increased. Okay, employment has also increased. And so that is what we get from this Gertler graph. And so there is evidence that the trend related to employment, wages, and productivity are related. So it is from research and it is from evidence. You can easily find that there is a positive association between the employment, wages, and productivity. As the productivity increases, GDP increases, and also wages increases, and also the employment increases. So which can be, which we can find out for the research. So you can see in many countries over a period of 46 years of positive association over a long period of time, there is a positive association between productivity and wages. So this is the graph which shows between what we call it as the US labor productivity, GDP, the y-axis, productivity, employment, and income, how they are affected, how they are affected over a period of time. So this is the time period, this is a time period, and what happened during this time period to productivity, GDP, employment, and income, right? So these are shown in the graph. You can easily conclude from here is that as the advent of the new technologies, with the invent of new technologies, with the invent of these new technologies, we find that there is a lot of progress and there's of improvement in productivity. If you have improvement in productivity, there will have improvement in employment. And if you have improvement in employment, and also you will have improvement in incomes of the people. So overtime technology, so you can see that overtime technology contribute to increased productivity, more productivity associated with more employment and higher real wages. Now looking even longer period of time, one can see that technology could be seen as a sequence of innovations and new inventions, and they come in waves. Sometimes they overlap each other, sometimes they reinforce each other, and in many ways, and they amplify the positive and negative effects. So one more thing that you can see, that one more series of graphs I'll be showing here. So this is a graph which shows for different countries, over a period of time, how technological innovations has underpinned a rise in living standards. Living standards. I think you know living standards. So if the living standards are raised for a particular country, people are more affordable to purchase more and more things. They could be able to afford to purchase the cars and the luxury items. The more the standard of living of a particular country, the more the people in that country has the ability or afford to purchase new things. So you can see that with the advent of technology, different technology, you can see that with the advent of Newton's since the light bulb, and also since petrol powered automobile, you can see this one, petrol light bulb, petrol automobile, and also you can see that Ford motor, this is the Ford motor, and you can see with the various inventions, how this technology innovation has contributed to the growth of living standards. You can see that living standards contribute to the improvement of the living standards. So for various, this is shown for various countries. So this is the US, right? This is UK, this is for Japan, for different countries, the standard of living, how they have improved with the technology over a period of time is shown in this particular technology and living standards. So over a long period of time, technology seems to be contributing in a positive manner to better standard of living and higher incomes, as can be seen from the screen. Since industrial revolution, there is unprecedented rise in incomes, and technology has undeniably contributed to that. Of course, transitions are costly, some jobs are destroyed, and some are transformed, and over a long period of time, it has a net positive effect. So the question now becomes, is the fear justified? So basically the question is that how this time is different. With the advent of AI, how basically this is different. Is there reason for anxiety leading up to automation, AI, machine learning, and so on? So will humans go with the advent of the new machine age, will humans go the way of horses? Previously, when there is no industrial revolution, when there is no power system, horses used to drive us, but they have become extinct. Similarly, machine intelligence, will they drive us, humans drive us to the background? The hard truth is that despite the raise of standards of living, despite the productivity increase, despite the raise of incomes of the individuals, the economic pie has becoming bigger. But there is no economic law that everyone or even most people will benefit. But it does not guarantee you that everybody makes it inclusive. This kind of progress, will it make everybody inclusive? That is the question that you need to ponder. So there is no economic law that says that raising living standards, raising incomes will benefit the percolate to the entire population. It will not, does it reduce the income inequality? It does not guarantee you the equality of all the citizens. So that is the question that you need to ask. So what does it mean all for our lives, our livelihoods, for our common economic future? One of the biggest worries, however, is how this technological innovation affects jobs. Putting simply, will machines leave workers behind? So technology is going to deal with the technology and unequal income. Okay, so we move fast. This time is running out. So technology advance creates, as I already told, the advance in technology does not guarantee you that it creates any inclusive environment, right? Only few will be benefited. That are statistics I will show now. So technological advance creates a small cohort of big winners, leaving everybody, rest of them behind. So according to Oxfam is a institute, so would try to analyze and gives the statistics of the data about how the people are progressing over a period of time. So income equality is on the rise across the world, no doubt. Income equality is rise all the world, starkly so. According to Oxfam, almost, you observe the statistics carefully, almost half the world's wealth is owned by 1% of the population. Half of the world's wealth is owned by 1% of the population. And stunningly, the bottom half of the world's population owns the same as the richest 85 people. Bottom half of the world population owns the same as richest 85%, the 85 people, richest 85 people in the world. Since 1980, the richest 1%, only 1%, increased their share of income in 24 out of 26 countries, for which we have data. In the US, the share of income taken home by the top 1% more than doubled since the 1980s, returning to the global depression. Since 2009, the richest 1% captured only 1% captured 95% of all income gains, while the bottom 90% got poorer. So you observe this carefully. The richest 1% captured 90% of all the income gains, while the bottom 90% got poorer. You see this staggering statistics. So what does technology is contributing? Who is going to benefit? So who are going to be the loser? That needs to be debated and has to be pondered upon. So you can see that how the technology have affected people who are having different skills, right? So just I'll go fast, a little bit faster. So I have, is there possibility to extend for 10 or 15 minutes, or I should complete it within by 11:45? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Can I extend for 10 minutes? Is no problem?
Yes, sir. No problem, sir. No problem.
Right, fine. Right, thank you. So you can see that here. This is a graph which shows how people who are having different skills are, how their wages are affected over a period of time. Just see that particular graph, you get, otherwise if I go fastly, then okay. So this is the income. This is the income of the high skilled worker, right? So who has graduated from school? So this is the income from college graduate. This is college from US. I'm talking basically about from the US only. And you can see high school. This is the high skill person, right? High skill who has graduated from school. It's a high school dropout. This is high school dropout, right? He is the one who is got affected, right? With the technology development, he is the most affected person. He's the person who's got most affected. So you can see that those with the lowest skills are having the toughest time. You can see that from that particular graph. People are having a dropout from school, who are having the lowest skills, are having the toughest time in today's economy. In US, the unemployment rate for people without a high school diploma is 3 times greater than for those with a bachelor's degree or higher. Indeed, over the past 2 decades, only those with the college degrees have seen raising real wages. Some are simply giving up and dropping out of the labor force altogether. So the same thing, statistics, you can see that here, technology can increase inequality. Because of technology, inequality has risen. Different people have different skills, have different incomes. This creates disparity. This creates inequality. So there is several literature available who had done work on this area of how the economy gets affected, how different skills gets affected because of the technology. So many papers are there. So some of them there's a growing course. Some of them have listed here. The cause that technological advance have contributed to wage inequality is strong. So information technology and US worldwide, April 2017. Almost every economist who has studied the question believes that technology has greater impact on wage structure and on employment on international trade. So we find that the income disparity because of technology has widened drastically. So that is all these things says about. So right, I go. The question is, how can you harness this technology while minimizing the disruption in the labor market and at the same time achieving more balance in income distribution? So several policy decisions can be thought of. We will discuss some of them in the next few minutes. So the question again, I repeat here, how can you harness the technology while minimizing the disruption in labor market and at the same time achieving more balance in income distribution. So this can be achieved by incorporating or implementing several policy decisions so that this disparity can be minimized. So we discuss some of them. So what are some of the policy option scenarios that hopefully shed some light? Hello? Right.
You can
So
continue. You can continue.
All right. Okay. So on this slide, you can see two diagrams. So one is actually using as a supplement, acting as supplementary, other is acting as a substitute. Right? So what is this new technology is doing now? So that is what we have to think. So policies aimed at countering inequality are hard to design. Even though there are several policies that we can contemplate, we can design, but are very difficult to implement because there is going to be a lot of resistance from the different sections from the top level. They threw up winners and losers. The potential for conflict and discord requires courage and determination. If you want to implement these new policies, you require a lot of courage and determination because so much resistance, so much obstruction from different, so much bureaucracy, so much what we call all discuss obstruction. It takes place from different quarters of the people, and yet giving the huge stakes, the work must be. But somehow you have to start somewhere. Otherwise, this unequal distribution goes on. In the years ahead, it will no longer be enough to think simply as economic growth. You cannot keep on harping on saying that economic growth, GDP growth, country is progressing. So it does not give you authenticity. You need to ensure that economic growth is percolated to all sections of the people. We need to ask if this growth is inclusive, whether the small boats rise with the big boats instead of being capsized by them. So you need to take big boats has to take along with the small boats. You should not drown the small boats in the name of progress. So suppose new technology was developed, the GDP, this is for new technology. This is for first scenario. If artificial intelligence has took place, machines has come into the market, then GDP may grow by almost 16%. And how it affects the various skilled workers, that is what shown in the diagram. Technologies can increase inequality, and so this is the growth gains from technical change can be compared with a higher investment in education. So that inequality can be reduced by a policy decision. For example, say tax cuts. So we can have a distribution of tax cuts, redistribution of called financial redistribution. So if your government can do that financial redistribution and restructure that by giving some safety net and also by giving some compensation for transition costs. So if you develop such kind of a policy, then you could be able to mitigate that disparity to a certain extent. One policy that you can thought of or think of is the physical restructuring. So another thing that you can do is the education training. This is found a tremendous gain. So it is a tremendous thumbs up that has been given rich dividends in many of the countries. So growth gains from the technical change can be compared with higher investment in education. So if you invest in education, what are the tax cuts or tax revenues that are getting from the rich people, that you try to invest on the training and the education of the people, that bound to reduce the disparity among different workers. So you can see that from this graph. So this one is, you can see that the low skilled workers are getting benefit of education, right? If you're given skill training, they are getting more benefit, and compared with the high skill and the medium skill. This is the physical restructuring, how the physical, not financial restructuring affects the different sections of the labor, that is shown in this diagram. And policies can facilitate the transition or earlier employment protection legislation has to be there. So many of the countries are there with a stronger but temporary unemployment safety net during transition period. So this has to come into an effect, safety net. So minimum guarantee amount. And this is the compensation that is given to the low skilled workers because of the transition from one domain to another domain. And also making social benefits more portable. Ensure that these people who are affected by the technology transfer, so their problems will be mitigated or lessened down by proper policy intervention. So I have listed a whole host of things here. It's a whole host of things which we can contemplate, which can thought of, which can be done with. So some of them just I will list out. Earned income tax credit. So this is done in the US. Universal basic income, minimum wages, education investment, educational transformation, anti-trust and competition policy. Like this, several policies that are there in order to reduce the disparities and see that it is that the benefits are percolated down to the all sections and make them all society inclusive. So how can we make the new economic age enhance? This technology must create opportunity to everybody, must enhance everybody rather than diminish our humanity. How can we make this amazing innovation advance the prospects of all people? That means, how can you make it inclusive? These are different times and they call for different solutions. As Abraham Lincoln once said, the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. What is this? That you should not be satisfied with whatever you have achieved, whatever you have learned. You cannot be complacent. You should not say that I have learned something, the rest of the future I can be able to have safety. So as the new occasion raises, we have to raise above. You have to embrace that new technology. You have to learn that technology. As the situation is new, we must think anew. We must act anew. So that is what Abraham Lincoln once said. So the bridge that can be used is education to reduce the disparities. One of the most important and prominent and efficient and effective technique that can be used is the education. The bridge that can be used is education, and not any education. Education attuned to the requirements of the advanced machine age. Putting it simply, education systems are not keeping pace with changing technology and the ever-evolving world at work. Education nowadays, many of the education systems are not keeping pace with changing technology and ever-evolving world at work. Not enough people are thinking strategically enough in this area. Not all the management, all the engineering colleges are not thinking in these lines. So what should be the education in the 21st century, in the latest technology? Fundamentally, we need to change what people learn, how people learn, when people learn, and even why people learn. We must get beyond the traditional model of students sitting passively in classrooms, following instructions, and memorizing material. Computers can do that for us. So if you keep on giving monologues, if you keep on delivering, feeding the same thing and students keep on listening passively to the same thing, this can be done by the computers. So it is routine work. It can be replicated. So computers are good at that. So humans don't need to do these things. A 21st century education system must focus on the areas where humans can outclass computers, such as in cognitive skills, interpersonal skills, fine motor skills, or sophisticated coding skills. You need to focus on these things: cognitive skills, interpersonal skills, fine motor skills, sophisticated coding skills. Think of a creative jobs, caring jobs, jobs that entail great craftsmanship. And given the rate and pace of change, we will need the ability to constantly adapt. and change through lifelong learning. So only the principle that an individual must have is to need to adopt the change and change through lifelong learning. You must be a lifelong learning person. So you can see that the artificial intelligence could not enter into hospitality, arts, right? Environment, where this is the environment, medical, and the human touch, where the human touch. So this means that public and private sectors, in order to achieve that, both the public and private sector must work closely together. It means that Institute of Education must think even harder about how to equip today's generation for tomorrow's world. We should always have the vision and has the vision or the mission that to think even harder about how to equip today's generation for tomorrow's world. Yes, machines can replace our muscles. Computers may even replace our intelligence, but they can never replace the capacities that makes us truly human, our creativity, our innovation, and our passion. So education must be the bridge between the present and the future, the old and the new. But we must also build an enduring platform. By enduring platform, I mean a new way of thinking about the global economy, a new outlook, a new multilateralism, where all stakeholders take joint responsibility for the common global good, breaking down the borders and barriers that really relics of the bygone age. Borders and barriers, those are in the previous years. Nowadays, we should look for the global common good. So this is really the only surefire way to bend the new age to our will, to manage the complex channels of hyper-connected world, to get to grips with global problems, and are no longer amenable to only national solutions, and requires global solution and needs cooperation from all countries. So you need to cooperate with one another in order to make progress totally towards newer innovations. So policymakers, technologists, and entrepreneurs must make a conscious effort to create a shared prosperity rather than individual prosperity. You should look for all the policymakers, technologists, and entrepreneurs must develop a policy which enables, which helps to develop a shared prosperity. So you create something which complements rather than supplements. So finally, let me conclude by agreeing with futurists Eric Ben Johnson and Andrew McAfee, the authors of the second machine age, when they say that technology is not destiny. We shape our destiny. So how do we shape this destiny? To borrow a Star Trek reference, how can we make the future look more like the harmonious United Federation of Planets and less like the soul-destroying Borg collective? What does it mean is that how you can work together harmoniously rather than squabbling with one another pretty selfish hands, as working as individuals. So we need to work cohesively and harmoniously towards a mutual common progress. So I honestly hope that this seminar hopefully sheds some light and some insights on technology and its implication on global economy in 21st century. I basically try to give a helicopter view rather than a silo perspective. In this context, let me remind Swami Vivekananda quote, "Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached." So we need to arise to know about the new technologies and implications that are associated with it, that accompany them, and awake about the latest trends, and should not stop until you achieve excellence in it. Borrowing a line from Gayatri Mantra in Rig Veda, Diyo na prachodayat, which means, may we be propel our intellect to right path. Let us pray that our intellect or technology, we use our technology so that our intellect propels towards the good thing. Also borrowing a line from Shanti Mantra in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Tamosoma Jyotirgamaya, which means from darkness lead me to light. I hope that this seminar has contributed to that endeavor. So before going for the questions, so I would like to conclude this seminar so by reciting these words. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kasyit Dukh Bhaga Avate, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may all become happy. May all be free from illness. May all see what is auspicious. May no one suffer. Om, peace, peace, peace. I will be happy to take your questions. Now we will be open the floor to take questions.
If anybody wants to ask any questions regarding the session, what was happened from the last 1.5 hours, you can raise your hand. We will unmute you. I request the participants who are having the questions, please raise the hand. We will unmute. Srinivas Rao sir, you are unmuted, sir.
Okay.
Srinivas Rao sir, you are unmuted. Next one, Rajendra sir. We are unable to unmute you. And Rajendra sir, you can post your question through chat box, sir. Your audio is not connected. Sri Rajendra, you can post your question through chat box.
Dhananjay madam.
One second, sir. 1 second. Srinivas Rao, sir, I think no one is asking, sir. Somebody the hand, but sir is not speaking.
Okay, unable to connect, unable to unmute his mic.
Sir, can we conclude this session with vote of thanks, sir?
Sure, but nobody is asking any questions?
Yeah, sir, nobody asked this. Somebody has raised the hand, but they are unable to, they don't have mic. Yes, sir. Sir, one question in chat box, sir.
Okay.
In what way globalization helps the new startup company?
So, new start company are the companies that can be started with who has new ideas, right? So, who are starting new companies? First, simply if they have new ideas, they cannot go ahead with the starting of the companies, because if a new company has to be started, you need to analyze for yourself whether that idea can be concretely converted into a tangible product. Whether this product, even if you would be able to produce that product, whether it is viable, feasible. So all the things that you need to analyze and understand beforehand before making starting a startup company. Otherwise, what happens is many of the startup companies, what they are trying, why they are failing, because so simply once they get the idea, they jump into the market and trying to produce that market, trying to produce that product. Thereby, what they are doing to thereby failing in the market. So in the beginning itself, you have to see that whether the idea that you have, can it be converted into a product? If at all it is converted into a product, then can it be viable? Can it be affordable? The people can afford that in purchasing that. Can it be viable? Can we provide who are the competitors who are producing that in all the countries? And also whether it is what are the marketing strategies, all these things has to be very well thought of, totally contemplated before actually coming. How globalization helps is that once you have a competitive quality product in your hand, so once its functions and its viability. So is automatically guaranteed, then you can able to market it into the entire world, right? People are there who are going to accept the body quality and the features, and also at a competitive price if you could able to produce them and you could able to offer them in the market. So globalization always helps you many folds for a particular person or company who has a quality product and a affordable price and competitive price. So that is the thing that you have to ensure if you want to be successful as a startup company.
And Dilip Kottapati, sorry, you are unmuted, sir. Dilip Kottapati.
Hello, is this audible?
Yeah.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon. I had a
Good
question.
Okay.
So, can I speak in Telugu?
Okay, oh, sure.
So, ఇప్పుడు కార్ షోరూమ్స్ ఉన్నాయి కదా, కార్ షోరూమ్స్ కానీ బైక్ షోరూమ్స్ కానీ. So mostly we prefer to buy in offline, and we mostly pretend to see, and mostly we pretend to ride, and we had to experience. So instead
Yes,
of
sir.
getting and buying these, if sale is going on online, if any loss will occur to offline.
Okay, so, right? Is that the question, or you want to ask
Yes,
further?
that's my question. If there any sales were going drawback for offline showrooms.
Okay. As far as my understanding of posing your question is that whether sales of the offline will go down when online purchase has gone before. So that is what my understanding is. So
Yes, sir.
yeah, okay. So there is no concrete proof for that, but still, so it is the change that you have to accept. So there is no doubt that the sales of the offline, also offline, so it goes to a certain extent, but still there will be a significant amount of offline sales, because here, so there are certain things which we cannot perceive unless we experience something. We cannot really think of purchasing anything. So these are the some of the examples that's what you have quoted, the bikes or cars. So these are the things that we want to experience on the first hand, so before arriving at a proper conclusion. So the examples which you have said may not be the most that might be got affected, but other things might got affected. But still, these are the things that keeps on changing, and we need to accept them.
Sir, another simple note,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, sure.
So, if so నేను కార్ షోరూమ్ కి వెళ్ళి బైక్ అనేది టెస్ట్ డ్రైవ్ చేసుకొని, బట్ దేర్ ఈస్ ఎ డిఫరెన్స్ ఇన్ ఆన్లైన్ ప్రైస్ అండ్ ఆఫ్లైన్ ప్రైస్.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Price
So
no, sir. So
yes.
if there is a viable chance to getting for me if in online, so how can you define this?
Sure. The thing is that as the time progresses, you can find more and more offline showrooms go to background, right? So they may be winded off, right? So nowadays, even you can say without the technology, what happens is that even the bank nowadays becomes irrelevant, right? So online transaction you can do. That means you don't need so many banks. Similarly, in the near future, you may not have so many showrooms, right? So these showrooms might have been drastically chopped off. So this is a change that is bound to take place, and the price which you are saying, mentioning, so this also may reduce further as more and more consumers opt for the online purchasing, automatically what the offline showrooms try to do is they will try to reduce the price if they want to survive. If they don't want to survive, if they want to stick their own ego, or if they want to survive their own dictum, then naturally what happens is they cannot survive. So that gap between the price between the off showroom and on showroom in near future might be reduced drastically.
Sir, any viable chances to give a complete competition to online?
Offline manufacturing. That's all.
How offline people can give viable competition to online?
Right. Even offline people, which you are mentioning, they are also opting for online. That is, if they want to sell the product,
Yes.
then they also have to take the help of the software, right? So nobody is immune here. Nobody is immune to the technology. Yeah. So everybody has to embrace to this new technology. So you can analyze that. What is the situation 3 years back? What is the situation now? Right? You can find many answers to your questions.
Thank you, sir, giving this opportunity. I am studying BTech second year mechanical in Chebrola Engineering College.
Okay, thank you. Hello. Any further?
Bindu, ma'am, you are unmuted, ma'am. Bindu, ma'am, you are unmuted. Okay, Srinivas sir. Srinivas sir.
Hello.
Srinivas sir.
Hello. Japan. Hello. Are there any questions?
Sir, I think no one is having the question, sir.
Okay, fine. We'll close there.
Yeah, sir. Dhananjani, madam.
Good afternoon, all. It is a great honor to propose a vote of thanks to all who helped us in making this webinar success. First of all, I, on behalf of Chebrola Engineering College, would like to propose hearty vote of thanks to our speaker of the session, Dr. C. Srinivas Garu, for gracing today's webinar. Thank you, sir, for explaining about Industrial Revolution starting from 18th century to Industrial Revolution 4 and how the social development changed over a period of time, and a nice explanation of how the technology is connected in everyday life, and also how the education system should be in 21st century. Thank you once again, sir, for your very interesting and thought-provoking address, which makes this webinar meaningful and worthwhile. I would like to thank our chairman and principal, Dr. R.V. Krishnaya Garu, for encouraging our department to conduct this webinar. I would also like to thank our beloved HOD, Mrs. Sai Banlata Garu, for her moral support and guidance. I would like to thank all coordinators and organizing committee of this webinar who worked very hard to conduct this event. Last but not the least, we, on behalf of Chebrola Engineering College, thank all the participants for attending this webinar and making it a grand success. Thank you to all the audience once again.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Sir, can we close, sir?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You can close.
Yeah, sir.